Welcome to Inside Politics with Kevin Klein, beyond the headlines, beyond the spin. Straight facts, sharp analysis, and common sense conversation you won't hear anywhere else. Let's get started.
Welcome to another edition of Inside Politics. I am joined by two of my colleagues from the Winnipeg Sun. We have Jeff Currier, a columnist, and Royce Coop, another columnist with the Winnipeg Sun, also a professor of political science at the University of Manitoba. Gentlemen, I got to get this off my chest. If I had the opportunity and I was standing in front of Prime Minister Carney, I would say, get on a plane, get down to the White House, and do not move until you have a deal. What is he doing?
He might be growing roots under him to get a deal with Donald Trump. I don't know how long you'd have to sit there to do that.
You got to try. This 77% of our economy depends on this. This is nothing to, you're not going to replace this by the money from Europe. You're just not.
Oh, no. Yeah. And Royce, there's no question that we're, even if we can diversify our trading routes, and we can to some degree, the United States is always going to be our biggest trading partner. We got to get this fixed.
Yeah, I mean, we can do things. This is like a years long, probably a decades long project, reorienting our trade partners. There's things we can do in the short term, things we should have done 10 years ago in terms of infrastructure, in terms of pipelines. I think the thing that's striking about Carney right now is how he's trying to shift expectations. He's now saying that we should just accept the idea that any trade deal with the U.S. is going to include tariffs. It's going to include U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods. Well, that isn't what he was saying in the election campaign. And we can now add that to the increasingly long list of things that he's changed his mind on since the elbows up campaign just a few months ago.
Well, it strikes me odd because I think you're right. The tariffs, I think Trump's going to keep them. It was just last month I was watching the news and it was huge down in the U.S. and it was the first month the U.S. government had a surplus. And it was all because of tariffs. So why would either party walk away from those right now when they can hang their hat on, oh my goodness, we had a surplus. We've got more money coming in because we have these tariffs. I think that's going to be something that every country is going to have to deal with.
Yeah, until people have to start paying exponentially more for the products that they buy, the average consumer. I mean, we've been down that road before. To talk about Carney and some of the things that he has changed, here's kind of a theoretical or a rhetorical question, is that what has Mark Carney done that Pierre Poilievre would not have done? In other words, Mark Carney is prepared to make significant cuts to government spending. He has gone on record repeatedly, and most recently with some of our First Nations leaders, as favoring more pipelines in Canada to try to keep our domestic oil production going. He's even told the CBC to make cuts after promising during the election campaign to give them more money. So Mark Carney, I know he ran as a liberal or a sort of a centrist, if you will, but he's governing more as a conservative, is he not?
Yeah, I mean, he's doing things that are directly contradict what he said in the election campaign. It bothers me as someone that cares about democratic accountability that we have politicians that say one thing in an election campaign and then do another once it's over and do so in a kind of baldly obvious way. And this is the kind of thing that hurts confidence in democracy, that hurts confidence in our democratic institutions. You know, it's not just that Carney is doing things that are different than what he said in the campaign. He's doing things that he attacked the Conservatives for saying they would accuse the Conservatives of doing some of these things, cutting the CBC, cutting the civil service. In Poilievre's riding in Carleton, which he lost, the local candidate spent years fear-mongering about conservative cuts to the civil service that would be coming. There's lots of civil servants that live in that seat. Now that it's going to be the Liberals that are doing this, that guy who's now the member of parliament, he has nothing to say about it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I've been in politics at the municipal level. I was in an MLA in Manitoba. I haven't met a campaign person yet that hasn't lied. On the campaign trail, look, you got the mayor in Gillingham and Winnipeg lied about, doing, Kennison lied about 3.5% tax increase. Lied. These are all lies. Wab Canoe, who everyone seems to love, he's the poster child, lied about healthcare. He hasn't got a clue of what to do about healthcare. He lied about balancing the budget. Now he's using the tariffs as an excuse. So, I mean, is it the fault of the politicians or is it us? once bitten, twice shy, but we just seem to go back for more bites.
Well, yeah, I mean, we know that we're going to get some fudging during election campaigns, but what Mark Carney has and Royce, I mean, like, I suppose as three sort of generally fiscally conservative guys, we probably don't object to some of the things he's doing, but this isn't what he promised to do, not what he pledged to do. So if I had voted for Mark Carney, if I voted Liberal because I was genuinely concerned that Pierre Poilievre was going to take a hatchet to the civil service or the CBC, or perhaps I was more environmentally minded where I didn't want any more pipelines, I'm going to feel cheated. I'd feel duped because these aren't just sort of, well, the tariffs have come in, and so we're going to have to pivot. We're going to have to make some changes. I mean, you can kind of skate around that a little bit. You can do your Connor McDavid and kind of skate around that one a little bit if you have to. But these are blatant. I mean, these are absolute flip-flops, and nobody seems to be calling them on it.
But I want to go back to the tariffs thing because you mentioned, tariffs are good until it starts costing people more money. The reality is we don't send enough into the United States for tariffs on Canadian products to bother you, the United States. They're not worried about the tariffs coming from Canadian products and such, maybe from China and some of their other bigger trading partners. But if you looked at the inflation that just came out, our inflation went up, I think it was 1.9. Most of it was because of groceries, but it was specific groceries like citrus and fruits, other fruits and stuff like that, that Mark Carney has a tariff on because they come in from the United States. So it's not Trump who's making life more expensive in Canada. It is Carney. Like, I don't mind if you want to put tariffs on American products coming in, make sure it's on American products that we can replace with Canadian made products. But listen, we're not growing oranges at the corner of Portage and Maine.
So what do you do? What do you do? You got a lunatic president in Washington who says, I'm going to slap these 35% tariffs or 50% tariffs, depending on what side of the bed he happens to wake up on any given day. How do you respond to that?
You go down and you negotiate.
No, but how do you negotiate with a man who will not negotiate?
He will. He's playing the game. Everyone knows that.
Okay, but so when you say negotiate, okay, I'm Donald Trump and you're Mark Carney. Sell me on the idea that I shouldn't be slapping tariffs on your goods.
We count on them for 77% of our.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm Donald Trump and you're Mark Carney.
We're going to have
sell me on the idea that I shouldn't be putting tariffs on your goods. What do you say?
Because it hurts Canadians. What do you say? Canadians.
No, if you're Mark Carney, what do you say to Donald Trump?
Make a deal. What do you need? How do we get there? What is it you're looking for?
He's looking for us to pay tariffs. He's looking for us to pay tariffs. He's looking for us to get rid of supply management. He's looking to dictate how our economy works.
Listen, supply management, you and I had had that argument before, I think has to go. It's only helping a few people.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. I mean, but this is an American president who wants to control and dictate the terms and conditions of the Canadian economy. How do you negotiate with that?
This is but it's our single biggest customer.
Yeah, I think you're both right. I mean, there's going to be pain here. As soon as Donald Trump got elected, there was going to be pain that we were going to experience. But we can get a better deal than the one it looks like we're going to get, and the federal government can handle this better than the way they are. I actually fear that you're right, Kevin. When tariffs were introduced, there was a significant part of the Republican Party that was skeptical. They were they opposed them. That's disappearing now. The Republican Party is turning into a protectionist party. That makes it seem like these tariffs are less of a negotiating tactic and really something we're going to have to get used to moving forward.
Well, a lot of Republicans are talking about the benefits of them and, having that surplus. They're starting to have that conversation as they get ready for the primaries and so on. So I think tariffs are here to stay. I think it's something that Donald Trump wanted to bring in. And I think it will be very hard, whoever takes over for Trump, to take them out because there's a revenue coming into the country from them. But my problem is that if you're Mark Carney, you got elected by telling people you were the smartest person in the room or you were the adult in the room and you could deal with Donald Trump. Then get down there. I don't care how long you have to say. I mean, he went on vacation to Australia. There's no time for that. You need to get down to the U.S. 77%. That we're talking almost $600 billion that we need from we send into the U.S. You know what we send into Europe? $52 billion. we're not going to replace it. And we have to, whether elbows up or pride, Canadian pride or whatever, you're going to have to put it aside because at the end of the day, it's worthless right now if the U.S. shuts the door on us.
Yeah, yeah. I think too that Jeff was saying before about Carney has gone back on so many promises for the election campaign. I actually think it's worse than that. The liberal politicians have been telling big nose stretchers in election campaigns for 100 years in this country. It's just it's their hobby. It's their national pastime. What's different now, what's new, and it's started under Trudeau is the wholesale demonization of ideas and people that they disagree with, which now that they turn around and actually bring in the institute once they're in power a few months after the election campaign. It really hurts democratic dialogue in this country. It hurts politics. It makes everything more polarized and more vicious than it has to be. And, the Conservatives get accused of that a lot. I actually think the Liberal Party of Canada has a lot to answer for when it comes to hurting the kind of quality of democracy in this country through these tactics that are actually relatively new, I think.
Yeah, Royce, when you start to demonize your opponents, that's when you really start getting into the sleaze. And well, it's tough enough for voters to make an informed decision without that kind of rhetoric out there. And we're seeing a deterioration at all levels, but certainly at the federal level, particularly in politics. We're seeing that deterioration of proper discourse and debate. And, do we have any real statesmen out there, statespeople out there anymore? I don't know. Where are the Mike Pearsons and John Diefenbakers and Tommy Douglases of this generation? Do we have statesmen like that anymore?
Yeah, I don't think so. I was shocked by the fact that the new ambassador from the United States to Canada, when he was asked about the digital services tax, said he was shocked because they had spoken to Canada months and months and months before all this happened, saying, "Look, if you drop that, that's the end. Like we're not going to have a conversation anymore." And he said they went ahead and did it. They stopped it right at the very last minute, but I don't know if we're paying attention. I think that's part of mine is that, if you're Carney and you've ran, and yes, he's made some lies. Again, every politician does. But I think he has to get on a plane. I think he has to be down there and not leave the U.S. until we have a deal. I don't think it's going to take that much, to be quite honest. Donald Trump needs to look like he has a win, make it look like he has a win, because it's too much money and too many people's lives are on the line. And I don't know if you saw the story in the National Post. People are starting to leave Canada.
Yeah.
Companies. Jeff, you and I were talking before taping.
Yeah, money is starting to leave Canada. International investors are more reluctant to come to Canada, and increasingly Canadians are looking to invest their money offshore. And that is really concerning.
I have 10 friends right now that are looking in other countries to move. They can run their business from somewhere else. They're going to open up in the US as well because they need that market. But they're looking for somewhere else to live. They can't see a future here, and they don't think it's sustainable.
Yeah.
And I really believe, I wrote this thing that's coming up in the Sun about the housing crisis. There is no housing crisis. On my street down the road, there's probably 10 condos that have been for sale for months. There's an affordability crisis in Canada. And why politicians won't just tell the truth and say, you know what, sorry, it's not a housing crisis. We've just made life so damn expensive. No one can afford to live here.
Yeah. A very, very big reason why Mark Carney is prime minister right now is because he convinced Canadians that he was the man to negotiate with Donald Trump. He had the right experience. He was the one that was going to pull the rabbit out of the hat. He was going to get a good deal for us. And eventually, Canadians are allowed to ask, where's the beef? Where is this great deal we were all promised? It's not materializing. Not only that, now we're starting to see the kind of indicators that you're talking about here, companies leaving, money leaving, and the party itself starting to shift expectations. We should get used to the idea that there's going to be tariffs in the future. And so it's a minority government, and eventually Canadians are going to notice that we're not getting what we were promised.
Yeah, I mean, it's a minority government in name only, really. Right? What do they need? 3-4 votes or whatever it is to pass a piece of legislation. So he's governing as it was a majority because he's got a de facto majority, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that, well, for at least a year, the bloc is not going to defeat them. Uh, it all comes down to the NDP. What is the NDP going to be doing? I'm assuming they don't want an election right away, but you never know.
I wouldn't be too sure that the Bloc's going to wait a year. He's starting to rattle a lot of cages, and he's pretty ticked at Carney, and he's not afraid to talk about it. And I believe a recent poll in Quebec showed the Parti Québécois up 20 points in that province. Up 20 points. So he might be sitting there going, oh, this may be an opportunity for us to call a snap election and get our seats back. He's not a dumb man. He's a strategic player. And listening to him right now, he is attacking Carney, not policies, not the party, Carney, saying he promised to do this, he's not doing anything, and he should have had a deal with the United States by now. So maybe he'll push the election sooner than we know.
Well, I think we're all opposed to supply management here on this call, but yeah, if Carney goes after the dairy farmers in Quebec, ooh, he could be defeated like pretty quick. Those are the most dangerous people in this country. If you're
and then those are the guys who prevented Max Bernier from winning the federal conservative leadership.
Yeah.
I remember in my radio days interviewing him, and he was sitting across from me, and Monsieur Bernier. You're opposed to supply management. You've got 5,000 dairy farmers in your riding. He says, well, I think they'll understand. Well, they didn't. They all went out and bought party memberships and voted against him. And he lost the leadership vote.
But now Danielle Smith is talking about it in Alberta, ending supply management in Alberta. And she's doing it, I think, in an intelligent way, giving out the facts. Here's the facts. Most of it's Ontario and Quebec. Most of the money is going to 3 or 4 major companies or people in Ontario and Quebec. How's that helping us? We pay more. I mean, that whole protectionism that we have, Canada's going to have to change because we cannot afford to lose 77% of our economy. And as much as people hate Trump,
we're not going to lose 77% of our economy. That's not going to happen. You know that.
What if he puts 50% tariffs on it?
Well, but is the country going to shut down? You think our economy is only going to be 33% of what it is today, or 23%?
No, but I think we'll be. I think if he doesn't do this soon, if in the next 30 days, we'll be in a pretty bad recession.
It's a really sad thing. The idea that my daughter will grow up in a country that's less prosperous than the one that I grew up in. We should all be able to leave more for our children. I think in Canada, people are going to feel more and more pessimistic about the future, and that's what's going to drive out migration to the U.S. It's going to drive money out of the country as well.
So they did a poll in Manitoba that I saw that if Manitoba would separate along with Alberta, and the numbers started inching up. Do you feel that?
I don't know. Who would want Manitoba right now? If there was a set, and I don't mean that, because we love our province, we love living here. That's why we're here. But supposing Alberta and Saskatchewan said, "Okay, we're out." What would be the upside to including Manitoba in that group for them?
Our minerals take it over.
Right. But we're not exploiting, and you've written about that many times. I know, Kevin, we've talked about that. We have hydro and we have minerals, but the minerals we're not exploiting anywhere near the extent. We're a perpetual have-not province.
Yeah.
We're on the dole from everybody else, from Ontario and Alberta primarily, and to an extent British Columbia. But if we were to be included in a group like that, this is pie in the sky stuff. It's not going to happen, I don't think. But if we were to be included in a group like that, we would have to admit that this is the way it's going to have to be. We're going to have to change our everybody has to work for the government mentality and start exploiting our natural resources. And it would require a significant attitudinal shift in the way Manitoba thinks about itself.
So I wanted to ask Royce this because Royce, I was talking to my wife about this and, Trump going on about the 51st state and all that. So we did a little research. This is apparently not uncommon for U.S. presidents to talk like this. It started with Washington and Roosevelt and others that have all talked about Canada should be part of the United States. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're picking on Trump, but I mean, Trump hasn't had his own idea since the day he was born. He's just stealing ideas from everybody else. You know, make
Yeah.
America great again, Ronald Reagan, and now this whole part about Canada and stuff. I looked it up. The history's there that an awful lot of American presidents and senators and Congress people have said we should just be part of Canada, should be part of the U.S. And I think maybe I'm wrong, guys, but I think it could happen because if you look at how countries have changed in Europe over time, we've been fortunate to be like nothing's changed in North America, but Europe has certainly changed on a several different times, right? Countries and moving to
Yeah,
different.
generally that's because that's kind of ethnic based or sectarian based in many cases. The former Yugoslavia would be one example of that. But I don't know if we've seen a serious conversation about that since the Fenian raids of 1865.
Yeah, it's kind of older in manifest destiny kind of talking. I always I had to remind myself after this election campaign that all of or most of the great elections in Canadian history have almost always revolved around the Americans. There's been some issue related to the Americans, to trade, to sovereignty. The last one in 1988, our great free trade election. And now this most recent election, 2025, it was the Americans that got us the outcome that we got. It's interesting. Jeff said that Western separation is a pie in the sky prospect. I don't think we ever talked about this. Probe did a poll of Manitobans, and they found that I was very surprised by this amongst conservative supporters. Support for the idea of separation is much higher than I would have guessed. I was really surprised by that.
Mhm.
I
It,
wasn't.
it makes me
So,
wonder if I'm missing something. If
well, okay,
there's
yeah. So why would anybody in Manitoba consider that the Canadian Federation no longer works when Manitoba is one of the greatest beneficiaries of the Canadian Federation?
Because if Alberta and Saskatchewan go, there's no more to benefit from. There's no more benefit. We're done. It's over. Most of that money comes from Alberta, Saskatchewan, the minerals and all that. And I think people are seeing the reality. I think people understand that the way that the Canadian government governs and the taxes, both provincially, municipally, federally, and now you got tariffs on vegetables. So we're even making our own people suffer more because he wants to pretend he's elbows up Carney when that's just ridiculous. Australia didn't do it. Lots of countries didn't put retaliatory tariffs on. He did just to prove a point. I think people are starting to see that and go, you know what? Maybe we are at that point. Maybe we're done. Because if you lose Alberta, what's Canada going to do?
Yeah, I don't know the answer, but it really did make me think that maybe we're missing something. Like maybe there's kind of thinking out there about separation, about Western separation that is just kind of passing us by, and yet they seem to unearth it amongst these conservative supporters here in Manitoba. It was very surprising.
You would vote no, Jeff?
I would need to see a really persuasive argument. I think there are plenty of reasons to question the way we're governed, the way our taxation system works, the way Canadian federalism functions right now. I think there's an awful lot wrong with it. Would those problems be solved by a three-province coalition? Because BC's not going to get into bed with Alberta and Saskatchewan and Manitoba. I don't think. I wouldn't think. I think BC would probably either join the United States or stay on its own.
Well,
Um,
Alberta's not talking about being on its own. It's talking about joining the United States. So is Saskatchewan.
yeah. Well, let them go.
So why do you think life would be better in Canada than it would be in the US? What is it that we have in Canada that makes us better than the United States?
Well, we don't have 350 million firearms to start off with.
Yeah, but
We
we
don't
have
have
more guns
more.
we have more
We,
guns on the street in Winnipeg than
we
Toronto
don't.
does.
No, we don't have more. We don't have more guns than people. We don't have a two-party system that is so rancorous that neighborhoods are divided over it, where friendships and families split. We never had to fight a civil war to keep this country together. There's about a million reasons why we're better off here than in the United States. If you're born in Canada, you've already won the lottery.
Royce?
How would I vote? Well, I'm a loyalist, so I don't think I could vote for it. But on the other hand, I want to live in interesting times. I'd like to see what would happen. That might be fun. So yeah, I don't know how I would vote.
You like the old ancient Chinese curse that you live in interesting times?
Yeah, I want to live in interesting times. I've only got so many years here. It would be fun.
So what? So tell me this then. If you're patriotic, both of you, that's great. So am I. But life is getting more and more expensive. They're owning a business in this country is tougher and tougher every day, every single day. If you owe money to GST, they'll call you every day. If they owe you money, try to get a hold of somebody. So how do you see Canada turning around then? How do you see this changing? And how soon do you see this changing?
Well, it requires, like I said, I think a significant attitudinal shift. We have to decide that government is not the answer to everything.
But you think that's
And
going to
Canadian
happen in this country?
and doesn't look like it anytime soon. So in Alberta and Saskatchewan, they've decided that. But when I lived in Saskatchewan many years ago, they truly believed that government was indeed the answer to everything. And there was an attitudinal shift that took place and a philosophical shift that took place there, beginning in kind of in the, I want to say in the late 1990s and into this millennium, that the mindset shifted. But it took some real good leadership to make that happen.
Yeah.
And it has happened. It can happen, but I don't know that I'm seeing much evidence of it happening right now. And Kevin, I know you're kind of pessimistic, and you can see that. You can see the reasons why, because we are headed in the wrong direction right now. I'm not sure that separation is necessarily the answer to that, though.
You're exactly right about Saskatchewan. It's just a remarkable, interesting place. The shift that we've seen over the last 15, 20 years and the mindset and the culture of that province. It was like 6 months ago, Justin Trudeau was still the prime minister and the Liberal Party was in the basement in terms of its support. We know why he was unpopular, and none of those things have changed. In fact, they're going to get worse. Affordability, housing, all the stuff that just ravaged the Liberal Party's popularity. It's all still there. It's going to get worse. I don't think this government is really going to last that long, to be honest. He
Carney,
hasn't.
Carney is Trudeau 2.0.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all that stuff is still there. I mean, if a change of government is going to make a difference, I think we're cruising towards that right now.
So let's talk about Carney a little bit more. The all of his investment and all that information that didn't come out during the election, and he swore he had no conflicts, nothing. Turns out he has a ton of conflicts. Turns out he's in bed with Trump's son-in-law in Stripe, for goodness sakes. Lots of shares in Stripe, and like he's got some heavy investments in a lot of things that you would think as prime minister he would have to recuse himself from every single vote. He's got so much investment that he didn't tell the truth about, that he lied about. Why is there no recourse for that?
You're like our former finance minister who forgot that he owned a villa in France.
It happens to me all the time. Oh, right. Yeah, the villa. Forgot
Oh, yeah,
about
that
that.
one.
Yeah, that one. Sure.
That was Bill Morneau, the record. Forgot that he owned a villa in France. But these guys, they don't breathe the same oxygen the rest of us do. And I think he could, Carney can tidy this up, but he better be quick about it because these things can hang on and they can bite you. And he needs to tidy this up quickly.
Okay, so why is he not fighting Trump? And then you sit there and say, okay, hang on a second. You have a big share in Trump's daughter's company, son-in-law's company. He's a major part of that. So, excuse me, like you can't tell me that that's not playing into this. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
it'll hurt. It's possible for this stuff you can die from a million little cuts. I can see that happening to Carney. I mean, his ethics screen is it takes your breath away. How many interests he has everywhere. We found out it's going to be administered, I believe, by his chief of staff. All this stuff just raises more and more questions. Questions are always going to be raised, and it has a cumulative effect over time. Like there's a reason that opposition politicians focus on these little things, these little conflicts, because it adds up and it can make a difference. I could see it hurting Carney.
So do you think that we're going to have an election sooner rather than later now because of all this?
Not within a year. I bet in 2 years, like we'll be really talking about an election.
But if we don't have a deal with the US, is 2 years too long? Are we done? Like, are we going to be deep in a recession? Maybe a depression?
possible.
Can't keep borrowing money the rate we're
Yeah.
borrowing it.
Yeah, it's possible. I'm with Royce. Minority governments generally have about a 2-year lifespan, and it depends on how prepared the opposition is financially to go to the polls. How much money do the Conservatives, the NDP, and the Bloc have? Can they afford to go and fight an election campaign? I don't think we're going to get an election until such time as they all say, yeah, our coffers are full enough to go do this.
Yeah, he's also he's going to be making cuts. I think it's pretty clear. He's sending lots of signals, and he's in a very vulnerable position right now. I know the NDP is in very rough shape, but I wouldn't overestimate how long he can last, how long he can hold on in the current circumstances.
I thought Jeff was applying for the NDP leadership.
Oh, sure. Good luck.
Yeah.
Wow. Who is going to want that job?
He's like one of one candidate.
Yeah. Who is going to want that job?
Someone from the caucus, maybe Leah Gazan will run for it.
Oh,
I'm sure she will.
Yeah.
but you talk about there being two parties in the US and how that's bad. We have too many parties in Canada. We've created division all across this country. We have far, far, far too many parties in Canada. And I think that that's worse for us. So hopefully, I mean, if it comes down to be the Liberals and the Conservatives, that's not a bad thing. Right? That's not a bad thing. Maybe that's not a bad thing for Canada. Having the number of parties we have dilutes the vote. It creates division. I mean, we've been divided because of Quebec for a long time. They've been playing the separatist card for a long time. Now Alberta's starting to play it. Saskatchewan's starting to play it. Where the country's just being divided.
Yeah.
And that is my fear, right? I've got grandkids. So I'm sitting there thinking, what kind of a life are they going to have? Because again, I see empty houses all around Winnipeg with for sale signs on them, brand new condos, still for sale. All I hear are politicians going, we have a housing crisis. We're going to build more homes. It's an affordability crisis. Doesn't matter how many homes you build, if they're $1 million each, nobody can afford them. And I don't see anybody at any level of government that has the intelligence to sit there, tell the truth, and say, let's fix the affordability problem. The only way you're going to fix the affordability problem is get a deal done with the US as quickly as you possibly can.
So you think if we get a deal with Donald Trump that housing prices are going to come down?
I think the economy and investment will start coming back to Canada.
Maybe.
I don't think it'll affect the housing, but I think it'll start bringing investment back to Canada and maybe U.S. investment.
When the median price for a house in Winnipeg is $678,000, you know something's out of whack.
Yeah,
That is out of whack.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Yeah, these little condos that I see, like they're little townhouses, 1,200 square feet, 1,100 square feet, $595,000. And there's like 4 of them in a row. You're all attached. Garages are all attached. I can't believe that. I think I bought my first house. I'm going to age myself now. It was like $65,000. And I thought that was insane. Now you can't buy a car for that. And I guess I want to go back to why I think it's bad, Jeff, because I don't want to just think that I'm a pessimist. I think I'm being a realist in the fact that we just don't have the businesses here, the manufacturing here, the investment here, the capital becoming here to sustain ourselves. We need big trading partners. We need to trade with the United States. Mm-hmm. We need that relationship to work. And I mean, that represents, as I said, over almost $600 billion. We need that to work. And that should be the single focus of every politician at the federal level right now. I know they're all out playing school days because they don't have to work during the summer. It's like they're in school. But this is too big of a problem. I believe they should all be down there. Every single one of them. We're paying, I don't know how much we're paying for Wab Kinu's friend from the CBC to be this official guy in Washington for Manitoba. But what's he done? How is he going to fix it?
I don't know. I don't think you're going to get any argument from either Royce or myself, Kevin, that we need to get this deal done. And because, hey, this is why Mark Carney and the Liberals were elected, because they promised that they could get this deal done.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair, more than fair, to be putting the screws to these people and saying, when are we going to get this deal done? You haven't made much progress so far, so let's see some progress, or else.
No, what did he
do? Tell us why.
He jumped on a government plane paid for by us and took off to Australia for 2 weeks with his family. when we're in the middle of I think, a very huge crisis in this country. I mean, I've never started a job where a couple of months later I got 2 weeks paid vacation.
Yeah.
And I've never had a job where they've actually paid for my vacation. You know,
Well,
and he gets a job, and all of a sudden he's everywhere. He's been to Europe, he's been to see the king, he's blah 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 blah. Blah. Does he really care? I don't know. I think that again, I agree with you, Jeff. I'm not going to get an argument that we need to get a deal done, but I have to stress more and more because I know a lot of people get into the down with the Americans. They're not an enemy.
oh yeah,
They're not an enemy.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
sure doesn't feel like that.
How? Why? What are they doing to you?
Is that a serious question?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Well, first of all, they want to absorb us. How's that? You don't do that to your friends.
They've wanted to do that since George Washington.
No, no, okay, but they haven't seriously wanted to do that. It
They
hasn't
have
been
seriously. George Washington
no.
seriously.
George Washington was 300 friggin' years ago, Kevin.
But
Come on,
still,
get off it. Get off it.
it's still.
The Americans are not our friends. 77 million of them voted for a man who wants to absorb and destroy our country. The Americans are no longer our friends. They are trading partners, but they are no longer our friends. And make no mistake about it.
I think that's a false statement to say they voted for him to take down Canada. They voted for somebody different. At that time, he wasn't talking about taking down Canada.
We'll see what the primaries show.
Yeah, but what he did say is that he was going to fix the spending problem and the revenue problem in the U.S., and he did say he was bringing in tariffs.
This is a guy who talked about how unfairly Canada has treated him, the United States, how terrible a country Canada is. These are not our friends, Kevin. They're our biggest trading partners.
I think
but
it's
they're
fair
not
to
our
say.
friends.
I think it's fair to say Donald Trump's not our friend, but I don't think it's fair to say Americans aren't our friend.
Oh, I think it's more than fair. Just to say the same way as it's fair for us to say that China is not our friend. China's not our friend. It's a big trading partner, but they are not our friends. Make no mistake. And neither are the Russians, and the Americans are no longer our friends the way they once were.
So who's our friend now?
The European Union's our best bet right now.
Really?
That's the best we got.
So
we don't have a lot of
our
friends.
economy is going to be counting on 52 billion as opposed to 600 billion.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that we're going to have to continue to trade with the Americans, but don't delude yourself into thinking that they like us or that they're our friends.
Yeah, I think there's lots of Americans that don't like what's happening or how it's happening.
Yeah, well, we'll see when the primaries roll around.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Royce?
I'm afraid to say anything. I don't want to get between the two titans.
We're just having a conversation about it. I mean, I've got friends from America. I mean, they're nice people. There's a lot of people in this province that own homes down in Texas and Arizona and Florida, and there's a whole bunch in Quebec. That, I mean, you go down to Florida half the time, there's more Quebec plates than Florida plates. That hasn't changed.
No. I may never go across the 49th parallel again.
Really?
Yeah. I may never, never's a long time.
But you were okay. You're okay that Canada was putting tariffs on U.S. products.
I am.
Oh, okay.
And my wife and I recently had an offer to go to the United States, and we turned it down. A free trip to the United States, and we turned it down. We just don't want to be there.
Royce, what do you think? I mean, we've had tariffs on the U.S. when they didn't have tariffs on us.
Well, I mean, we can't blame countries for standing up for their own self-interest, and us included, the U.S. included. I think the U.S. has gone further than that with the annexation talk, which I'm rightly concerned about in this country. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you're doing this, Jeff, but I think sometimes the dialogue in Canada, where we kind of say like we've been betrayed by the United States. No, they're their own country. We shouldn't be surprised when their politicians do, what they think is in their own best interest. They don't really owe us anything, to be honest. We have to kind of stand up for ourselves. And we've talked about this tons of times on this podcast. We need to do the things that are going to protect ourselves, insulate ourselves against these kinds of threats. For the last 15 years, we just completely failed to do so for a variety of reasons.
I mean, is it not true that we've counted or just believed that if anyone ever attacked Canada, the Americans would be there in a heartbeat to protect us?
No question. We have not pulled our weight militarily. You'll get no argument from me on that. I've been on that bandwagon for decades, and successive American presidents have been on us, and rightly so. even Barack Obama, who's hardly a warmonger
Yeah.
by temperament, was all over us for that, and rightly so. We need to do better. We need to hold up our end militarily. We need to do that proper spending, right? But you talk about how fractured Canada has become, and we all have concerns about that. There's no country on the planet more divided right now than the United States. I don't think I'd want to be a part of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't been down there to really tell you that if that's the case or not, but who knows? I know. I think once he puts the 200% tariff on European wine, that might create some problems. But there's no tariff on Canadian beer, so no, it's not really going to help us. It's a good discussion. I appreciate it. Anything else we're missing, gentlemen?
I know you wrote this week about the homeless situation in Winnipeg, Kevin, and it's a much longer conversation to have, but I think it's a worthy one for us to maybe have down the road. That we're talking about, depending on the surveys that you happen to see, could be anywhere from 2,000, 3,000 or so homeless people in Winnipeg at any given time of year. Now the numbers fluctuate depending on the time of year and so forth, and it's hard to get a real accurate count. Mm-hmm. Could be 2,000, it could be 4, but it's somewhere in there. And yet it just dominates our conversation in this city. The problem of homelessness. And one of the things that you wrote about this week, Kevin, and it's absolutely true, that there are people who are homeless who simply do not want to be given a place to live. And I don't know what you do about folks like that.
Yeah, but we're not thinking about that either, right? We're not admitting that fact. We're not admitting that fact. And there's been lots of engagement on X and other things about the column that I wrote, and I've received some really nice emails and people talking about it. I think you have to talk about it because especially when I think here in Winnipeg, they were talking about there's survival crimes. They're going to have to let survival crimes go.
Yeah, what's a survival crime?
I don't
Somebody
know.
breaks into my house and steals my bike so they can fence it up in the north end. That's a survival crime? Not to me, it ain't.
Right. So I don't know. There's so much about this, and it's funny. I talk to people that work at Siloam Mission and at Main Street Project, and there's varying opinions of what's going on. Right? Like a lot of them, and I did get it from a lot of them that there's people that have lived on the street for 10, 15 years, and they're perfectly happy. Leave me alone.
Yeah, and people can disagree on how best to deal with this. There's people that are home first, housing first. Other people think, oh, you have to, deal with some of the mental illness amongst homeless people. If you're going to deal with this at all, you can't just stick them somewhere and expect that they're going to be responsible renters or homeowners.
Right.
And so we need to, I think, be more critical, more engaged with this rather than just sort of saying, oh yeah, this is everyone agrees, or the science is settled on how to address homelessness. No, there's actually room for disagreement on that, on how to do this, and it's not working right now either.
No, but there's no checks and balances either. I think that there's so many, and I might get killed for saying this, but I've been in the political side. I did that work when I was with the Winnipeg Police as their chair. The homelessness has become an industry. There are so many groups out there that get government funding to work with homeless people that I think the homeless people suffer more, right? There's so much money going to the bureaucracy of running homeless organizations and so on that there's a bit of a problem there. And I think we have people trying to solve the problem being politicians. They make promises at election and they just ignore it. But yeah, I really felt strongly when I wrote that article that we have to be honest about the fact, look, there's just some people that like to be homeless. So how do we deal with that for families? Anyways, gentlemen, thank you very much. Good to get back. Good back and forth there, Jeff. Right. I appreciate that. And we'll get at it again next week, on the Inside Politics. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Inside Politics with Kevin Klein. Please like and subscribe to this channel and visit thewinnipegsun.com for more.